Welcome in, everybody, to Betting Pros. It's me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, and it was just your typical Sunday in the NFL where Justin Fields went out and had an all-world rushing day and set a record for rushing yards at quarterbacks. Joe Mixon had 5 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers lost to the Lions, and Kirk Cousins is apparently now a rapper named Young Cuzzy. And we are about to turn the page and look ahead, because it was just normal Sundays, Oh, wait, and the Jets beat the Bills. That's right. But before we can look ahead, we've got to look back a little bit. And we've got a few friends here, as always. Pat Fitzmaurice, Matthew Freedman here to help us do just that. And wasn't week 9 a wonderful lesson, Pat Fitzmaurice, before we turn the page to week 10, about the discipline of looking at the home underdogs and no matter how ugly it is, holding your nose and doing the right thing?
Yes, it was, Joe. And as I mentioned on last week's show, seeing that there were 8 home underdogs on a 13-game slate, I just committed to betting 1 unit on every home underdog, and it worked out pretty well. And that's the thing. You can't, if you're going to do it, you got to commit to it. Take every home underdog, because if you pick and choose, you're going to pick and choose the wrong ones. I mean, betting on the Jets, even getting those 11 points or whatever it was, felt gross. But look what happened. Now I'm regretting not having taken the money line. And, I would have just taken a week's vacation. You guys would be doing the show by yourself. So, yeah, I mean, I'm almost sad there aren't as many home underdogs on the week 10 slate.
Friedman, any regrets that you didn't have enough home underdogs in your betting slip yesterday?
Not so much regret on that. It was a good week. I went 8-4-1, but I do have some regrets on the manual adjustments I made because there were some really big spreads last week. And, I had some value on Houston. I had some value on the Jets. I had some value on the Titans. And it was just like, nope. Like I'm behind the market. I'm probably a little bit wrong. I'm going to regress closer to the market with these numbers just so we're more in line. And I wish I had been just a little bit stronger in the projections we had because our projections were actually right. So it was a good week. It could have been a great week.
Let's kick things off. Week 10, the Atlanta Falcons 4-5 take on the Carolina Panthers, and Carolina 2-7. The Panthers are home underdogs. 2.5 points is the number here. The Falcons got Cordero Patterson back yesterday, and man, what a physical presence Cordero Patterson is, and just kind of changes what the Falcons are able to do. 42.5 is the number. If you like Carolina on the money line, it's plus 108. Pat, when you're looking at this one, you're the expert when it comes to home dogs. Are you staying disciplined yet again here in week 10 to kick things off?
Oh, man, no, I actually like the Falcons in this one, Joe. And it just seems like we saw the Panthers kind of crumble a little bit yesterday. And this game, oddly enough, a rematch of a strangely thrilling game that, the Falcons had to go to overtime to win against the Panthers after P.J. Walker hits that deep late bomb to DJ Moore. It'll be interesting to see if the Falcons get AJ Terrell back. Like that's kind of a key for them. Their secondary's been hellaciously banged up. They're going to be without Casey Hayward for at least one more week, but maybe they can get AJ Terrell back from his hamstring injury. So, and it's going to be interesting to see which of the 3 Panthers quarterbacks we get this week. Like PJ Walker benched. Baker Mayfield played pretty well, but Baker Mayfield, I think the Panthers had decided was not the answered quarterback. Maybe Sam Darnold is healthy enough to make a start for Carolina. But, Freedman talked about this on Twitter. Like the Falcons are the definition of exotic smash mouth this year. And even more so now that Cordero Patterson is back. And you said it, Joe, he looked like a man back from a long vacation. He was supercharged. So, this time, I don't think the Panthers or the Falcons are going to struggle with the Panthers. I think they're going to take care of business this time, even though it's on the road.
On my Fantasy Pros News Desk app, I did just get that little news alert that Sam Darnold will be active this week. Friedman, does that or any other quarterback enter into your sphere about considering early wagering for this contest?
Yeah, I've just bet on the Falcons here at -2.5. I have this like Fitz projected at -3. So I do think that there's some value here because I am taking into account that AJ Terrell is out. So if he comes back, that's just sort of like free money at this point. And I am expecting Baker Mayfield, who, I mean, whatever. I still think he's probably the best of those three quarterbacks. I am expecting him to start, but maybe he doesn't start, in which case this is an even better situation for the Falcons. So I do think there's value now at anything under 3.
All right, Seattle and Tampa in Germany. The game is at Deutschland. Tampa is 1-point favorites in this one against the Seahawks, who came up with another W, 6-3. Tampa finally got off the schneid, and I mean barely, just barely did. 44.5 is the number. Seattle on the money line is even money. Freedman, what's your early take on this contest if you have one?
Yeah, I like Tampa Bay. I mean, I'm the idiot who bet them at -2.5 in the look ahead market. So whatever. But, my feeling was that if it moves up to 3, I'm going to be really happy I grabbed it at 2.5. And if it moves down, there's not much of a difference between 2.5 and any number below that going to 0. So I still think that there's value here. I think this number should be 3.25. So I'm strongly on the Buccaneers here. I think they have still a good defense. They are getting healthier. And I think that offense is starting to round into form. So I am on the Buccaneers here. And I hate saying that because I've loved Seattle to this point, but on a neutral field, I still think Brady should be favored.
Yeah, the consensus line for this one, Pat, is still Bucks at -1. So obviously, there's some wiggle room here potentially too, but are we not giving the Seattle Seahawks enough credit? I mean, they seem to be the little engine that could here. They run the football. The defense is very opportunistic here, and Tampa Bay really did just eke out a victory in that game against the Rams. What are your thoughts on this one?
Oh, I think we're giving the Seahawks a lot of credit, Joe. Like, think of what sort of reassessment of these two teams this line represents. Like, what would this have been before the season on a neutral field? Like
probably
Tampa by, oh man, I'm thinking like 8.
9.5. 9.5 was the number. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is quite.
See, the neutral field is what hung me up. That's why I said 6. Like neutral field, that's one of those things where you never know the travel and things like that. But 9.5, that's wow.
Yeah, I mean, Geno Smith versus Tom Brady. All of a sudden, now it's looking like more of an even match. So yeah, like I think Seattle's getting a lot of credit for this line, but like Freedman, I still think the Buccaneers are about a field goal better on a neutral field. And, part of this line, I think, is that Tampa's struggled against the Rams. Like their offense has been having some issues and the Rams gave them issues, but the Rams have a good defense. They can give teams issues. So I don't know. I still think the Bucs are going to outclass Seattle in this one. I'm not quite buying Seattle's a 6-3 Super Bowl contender. They're a nice surprise, but I still think the Bucs are the better team here.
I think Seattle's super dangerous as an underdog. I think they think they're an underdog. I think that's a narrative they keep playing, and I think it's working for them every single week that nobody believes in them. And this is another opportunity where nobody's going to believe in them. It's a big national attention moment. I'm on the Seattle side hard on this game, and I don't usually do this early, especially on these international games. I tend to shy away from them. I like Seattle side on this one to win outright. Minnesota, Buffalo. Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen dealing with a little elbow pain and a lot of pain in his heart after losing to the Jets this weekend. They are, regardless, 7.5-point favorites here against the Minnesota Vikings, who came out with a victory. They are 7-1. 48.5 is the number. If you like Minnesota in this contest, plus 280 on the money line for the upset. All right, let's talk about this, Pat Fitzmaurice. So before the show, you mentioned, and you were absolutely astute in saying this, that the Buffalo Bills are a team that every time you think they are dominant and ready to go, they have a game like they did this past Sunday where things don't quite look like the dominant Buffalo Bills. So maybe they got caught looking ahead. Maybe they didn't take the Jets too seriously. You have to take the Vikings seriously because that offense has a lot of weapons. What are your thoughts on this one? Is this number too big here and not respecting Minnesota enough?
Again, I think this shows Minnesota a lot of respect. I think this line does reflect respect for Minnesota, maybe more than they deserve. More on that in a second. But this is why I love betting on good teams coming off bad losses. The display of mortality by the Bills has brought this line down against a team with a winning record. And yet, they're going to be fired up to get the taste of that bad loss out of their mouth. So, last year, the Bills had a similar clunker against the Urban Meyer-led Jacksonville Jaguars. They lost 9-6 in Jacksonville. They came back and squashed the Jets 45-17 the next week. So the Vikings, granted, are better than those Jets, but I'm guessing the Buffalo offense hums this week. And meanwhile, the Vikings, 6-game winning streak, they have won all 6 of those games by 1 score or less. But within the margin of 1 score against teams with a combined record of 21-31. The only team they've beaten with a winning record over that stretch is Miami. They're overvalued. I mean, this line reflects an overvaluation of the Vikings. I still think they're kind of a fraud as far as being like a Super Bowl contender. They're not.
All right, Freedman, this is kind of the reverse script of the Vikings last year, who lost every game by 3 or less at all times. So now you have the momentum of them winning these close games and starting to feel confident. Does this confidence carry over into Buffalo here? And is the confidence of the Bills shaking a little bit? Do you see any value here in this early number?
I like 2 bets in this game, and they kind of go against each other a little bit, but I'm with Fitz. I like Buffalo here. I have this at 9.5. Actually, no, I bet this at 9.5 again, just bleeding value on these look ahead numbers, but I have this projected at 10. I think there's a lot of value in 7.5. Like Fitz, I think there's a bounce back opportunity here. And I also like the under. It's 48 across the market, even 47 and a half at a couple of books, still 48.5 at Caesars. I would be betting that right now. I have this projected at 47.3. And, there is more opportunity for this number to continue to go under if some of the defenders for the Buffalo Bills return to action. Jordan Poyer could come back. Tre'Davious White could come back. And thinking about the Bills, I'm not all that worried about the elbow situation. I think the Twitter doctors were a little overzealous last night, talking about how there's the opportunity that Josh Allen might miss multiple weeks. Allen has said, yeah, the elbow hurts, but he plans to play through it. So I'm evaluating this number based on the likelihood right now, my perceived projection of Allen continuing to play. So I think there's value on both Buffalo and the under, because this is an under team with their defense.
The Lions take on the Bears. The Bears 2-point home favorites here after Justin Fields had himself a day. 48.5 is the number here, plus 110 on the money line if you like the Lions to keep the wins coming here. Freedman, I think the best wager you can make here is to wait for the prop market to develop and just take the over on the Justin Fields rushing yards. I think it's probably the easiest thing to do. But outside of this, do you feel there's any early value as we look at this number of 2 or the 48.5 in this game?
Yeah, I do. I already bet on the over in this game. And, I bet it when it was, I believe, 45.5 in the look ahead market. Shout out me. The one of the few instances I actually got some value in the look ahead market.
You love you some you. We know
but
that.
I still think there's value here at 48. Let me see what my projection is for this. I have it at 49.8. So I still think that there's value here on the over. Both of these teams can put up points, and the Bears, their defense it's not good, or at least it's not as good as it looked earlier in the year. They've had some degradation and losing some key players on that defense. So they can score, as we saw, the past few weeks, and they can let opponents score. So I view this as a over opportunity.
All right, Fitz, your thoughts here on the Bears and Lions?
Don't want to touch a side on this, but the total was up to 49 on DraftKings this morning. Like I'm kind of on the opposite side of Freedman with this one. Like we saw the Lions offense sort of struggle yesterday against the Packers, but the defense played really well. Like the Bears want to run the ball. It's still going to lead to kind of a slow game. And I don't know if it's possible for Justin Fields to get as many chunk play runs as he had yesterday against Miami. So I don't know if I love it enough to bet it, but I'm kind of under the total here. So Freedman and I might be at odds with the side. I don't think there's value.
All right, the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to head to Kansas City. Kansas City 9.5-point favorites in this one. 49.5 is the number. Jacksonville plus 350 on the money line. Pat, Kansas City Chiefs continue to find ways to win. It was not necessarily the dominant victory I think people were expecting potentially against the Titans, but the Titans are a grinding kind of team. They play good defense. No surprise there. The Jaguars might be in for a little bit of a hard times, in the words of my old friend Dusty Rhodes. Hard times, baby, might be coming for the Jacksonville Jaguars in Kansas City. So do you think that you want to jump on this 9.5 now before it grows any larger?
Yep. Absolutely. I think it should be like 11 and a half. And yesterday, week 9 results obviously influencing this, and how the Titans kind of turned it into a mud wrestling match, since we're talking Dusty Rhodes and wrestling, Joe. Like the Titans, though, are very good at disrupting these high flying offenses and playing a game on their terms.
Right.
And the Jaguars don't necessarily strike me as the sort of team that's going to be able to do that. Although they did it with the Bills last year in that 9-6 game that we were just talking about. Still, I don't think it happens again. Like, I'm grabbing the Chiefs now.
Freedman, I want to hear your thoughts on this game, but I also have a question for you. Early in the year before the season, I'm always very careful about the wagers I make for some of the awards. And I only put money on 2 people at 2 big numbers for MVP, Mahomes and Allen. To me, it's a 2-person race. Always was, always will be this year. And I got it plus 700, plus 800 for Mahomes, 700 for Allen. After yesterday, has the calculus changed a little bit and who's the front runner for MVP?
Oh, man. I think it's probably close to a toss-up at this point. You still have to give the edge, I think, to Buffalo, because they have the head-to-head tiebreaker over Kansas City, which means, if they get the number 1 seed, Allen's winning the award. But yeah, I mean, Kansas City, obviously, and I'm with Fitz. I have this at 11.5. And I'll just say it feels weird, because for a lot of the year, I've been showing value on underdogs. And this year, or this week, there's been a little bit of a shift where I'm showing more value on some of the favorites, some of the bigger favorites. And it's just like, all right, well, I'm just going to go with what the numbers show. But to the point of, MVP, I think Mahomes is right there. I'm with you. I have a ticket at 9-1. I mean, the idea of not betting on Mahomes basically every year.
I know, it's just crazy. I mean, there was a lot of other people you could have that were in that same universe of numbers, which I thought was just very odd.
I do got to say, Jalen Hurts has a chance, just given how soft the rest of their schedule is. If they go, they're not going to go 17-0. They're not going to. But if they go 17-0, he has to win the award.
I agree. The only problem is statistically, when you look at the passing touchdowns compared to his counterparts there in the passing yard, like, he is just so far behind statistically in those numbers. It's just a really hard sell. And I think collectively people look at the Eagles as really good defense. They run the football a lot. And look, I'm with you. Jalen Hurts, certainly deserves all the due he can get. But it is really hard to pass those other guys because statistically he's just not in the same universe. Go ahead, Pat.
What were Geno Smith's odds before the season?
Non-existent. He's laying in the weeds with that one. Oh, Fitzy laying in the weeds with that one. Let's go to Cleveland and Miami. 6-3 here. -4 for the Miami Dolphins. The Cleveland Browns coming off of their bye. Well rested. Will it matter? We shall see. Certainly, Miami's defense is a lot to be desired there, especially stopping the run. Oh, good. You get Nick Chubb now and Kareem Hunt. 48.5 is the number. I don't think that's safe. Plus 165. Fitz, let's start with you on this one here. Your thoughts on the Cleveland Browns Miami game, and do you think that this 48.5 is something you should jump on now?
I like Miami here. And yes, they did not do a good job of keeping Justin Fields hemmed in the pocket. That seemed to be, not part of their defensive game plan, and perhaps it should have been. But they did a fine job against, David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. So it wasn't like the Bears running backs were giving them problems. I just think this line is obviously being influenced by the way the Browns played last week against a very flat Cincinnati team. Like, the Bengals just looked terrible in that game. The Browns pass rush was getting home all night. So, I think this is influencing that line. And I just think Miami is superior firepower. And I'm going to bet on the superior firepower. I think this should be 4.5 to 5 points. So I'm going to take it now.
Is that where you are with this one, Freedman?
Yeah, I haven't bet it yet, but I probably will. I have this projected at 5.25. Of course, we do have the revenge game for quarterback Jacoby Brissett, but not worried about that. I don't see any value on the total, but I do see slight value. But because, the difference between 4 and 5.25 where I have it projected, there's not much of a difference there. I haven't bet it yet, and I was kind of wanting to see if the market moved in one direction or the other, but I'll probably just bet it now.
The Houston Texans gave it all they had on Thursday night, but it wasn't enough. They are now 1-6-1. They'll travel to the Giants who are 6-2, coming off of a bye, a rested Saquon Barkley. The Giants are 6.5-point favorites in this one. The number's 39. Houston's plus 220 on the money line. Looking at this one here, Freedman, actually, it's even moved, I believe, from last night to now, because now we've got the Giants at 7 points and the number's gone to 38.5. I see Houston's at plus 240. So just from, 12 hours ago, this number is already moving. So what do you make of that as this number starts to move? Do you want to jump on the Giants now before it grows any larger?
I don't think I would bet it now. It's 7, but I did grab it at 6 in the look-ahead market just because I assumed that it would open a little bit higher than that. But at this point now, honestly, I'm showing value on Houston, but that's so disgusting. And I made the same mistake last week of not wanting to be on Houston. But, I would, if I'm on anything right now at 7, it is Houston, but I would have to think about it pretty hard. I haven't bet the under yet, but I do show a little bit of value there. It's 38.5 right now. I have it at, I believe, 37.4. So I think there's some value on the under.
Fitz, do you see any value on the under or anywhere else in this game?
I kind of like the over here. Like the Texans offense with what Dameon Pierce is giving them. Yeah. Like he makes the passing game work a little bit better. And this assumes, the Texans do need to get, I don't know what's going on with Brandon Cooks. Is this like some sort of odd estrangement from the team, or is he going to be back this week? Like they need him to, have more of a multifaceted offense and not just the Dameon Pierce show. The Giants have been clicking, but have they accumulated any rust during their bye week? And maybe I'd give them like a little bit of an advantage coming off that bye, but then the Texans are coming off sort of a mini bye with the Thursday night game last week. I don't know, Joe, the Texans seem like another wrestling analogy, like a jobber, like a really good jobber. They're not going to win, but like they can, maybe keep it close and put the superstar over. And, I don't know what kind of superstar the Giants are here. Not exactly a Hulk Hogan. So,
no.
It seems like kind of a big number for this one. Like, I don't see any value on either side right now. But I do like
I feel like the Texans, Pat, they had how many primetime games are the Texans playing this year? Was that the only one, probably? Right? I feel like they got excited to play this. It's us against the world. We're in our home stadium. Let's let all hang out. I think that was a lot of that. I think the letdown from that, I'm on the Giants side of this one personally, because I just feel I don't know if they can pump the air up into that balloon again. As impressive as Pierce was, and he was terrific in this game, but still, I have a hard time believing that. We shall see, though, what happens if they travel to New York. The New Orleans Saints, right now, they are 2.5-point favorites as they head to Pittsburgh. So they are home underdogs at 2.5. The Pittsburgh Steelers coming off the bye, plus 122 on the money line. 41.5 is the number. Pat, does Pittsburgh here maybe catch New Orleans in a short week and catch them napping? What do you think?
Yeah, not only a short week for the Saints, but Pittsburgh coming off a bye. So big scheduling advantage here for Pittsburgh, which is why I've got this game about even. And I've been on the Saints train the last couple of weeks as home dogs against the Raiders and then against the Ravens this week. But I am deboarding this week and taking the Steelers here. More time for Kenny Pickett to maybe, study film, reassess his first month as a starter. Maybe that offense hums a little bit coming out of the bye. Well, I don't know about hum, but maybe it's a little more functional. So I like Pittsburgh here.
Matt, this seems like an opportunity for the Pittsburgh Steelers to regroup, reset, give the young quarterback a little bit of a breather, a little bit of time to, get more comfortable with the offense. He isn't the worst case scenario here, going to play the Eagles, going to play the Buffalo Bills. I'm not saying the New Orleans Saints are a cake defense. They're not, but it's an opportunity at home where I feel like Pittsburgh could kind of reset things for themselves as a team for the rest of the season. I know they're 2-6, but do you see a potential here for an upset for Pittsburgh?
Yeah, absolutely. Mike Tomlin as an underdog has been great. He's been fantastic in that situation, especially at home. We've got it lining up here. I've already got this circled as a bet I want to make, but not at 2.5. I think the Saints do well tonight. And when this number reopens after that, it could be 3. And so I'm looking, waiting. If it's at 3, I'm going to be jumping on it. If it moves down to 2, there's not much of a difference from 2.5 to 2. So I'm hoping that the market moves in the direction I want it to. And that's, kind of opportunistically looking to bet it at a better number.
Fitz, your thoughts here on the Pittsburgh Steelers and a potential upset here of New Orleans on the short week with the long bye? You think we're in a spot here where maybe you go right to the money line on this one?
Yeah, and depending on what the line is, I'm probably going to hit it early with the money
It's
line.
plus 118 right now, I believe. No, plus 122 it's now moved to.
Yeah, I don't have Freedman's patience. I'm probably going to hit it early with a small one unit bet, and maybe I'll drop another unit if the line moves up.
All right,
yeah, I do like Pittsburgh a lot here.
All right, let's move on to Denver and Tennessee here. Tennessee 5-3, coming off a tough loss there to the Kansas City Chiefs. Denver at 3-5, coming off of their bye. So Tennessee 2.5-point favorites at home. No surprises there. 39.5 is the number. Plus 112 on the money line for the Denver Broncos. Freedman, I want to start with you on this one. We were talking before about the Tennessee Titans kind of bringing you down to their level. Denver Broncos, pretty good defensive team. What Denver Broncos do you expect to come out of the bye, though, in this contest?
I mean, I think pretty much the same version that went into it, except maybe a little bit better on offense. But, they are a defensive focused team. I think the under here is the play. I took it when it was 40. It's 39.5 now. I have it projected at 37.4. So I still think that there's value at this number. In terms of the side, I'm kind of whatever on it. The line is 2.5. I have it projected at 1.75. Not much of a difference there. So if I'm betting this game at this point, I'm looking at the under.
Fitzmaurice, are you looking at the under as well for this one?
I am. I kind of think, even though my projection is more for pretty much spot on, I think Freedman's right about this, and I think I was too high. And I like the Titans here, actually. I think they are settling into their identity again. And it's funny, they had this similar identity last year, and, it carried them to a number one seed in the playoffs. And we thought this was a lesser version of last year's team with a diminished defense, worse offensive line. And the defense looked terrific against Kansas City last night. I mean, no Harold Landry, and yet they were all over Patrick Mahomes in that game. They managed to cover pretty much blanket everyone except Travis Kelce in that game. So, the Titans are sneaky. They've been sneaky for the last season and a half. And, I just don't really believe in the Broncos. They've given us no reason to believe. So I'm taking the Titans here at home.
To Fitz's point, I am deducting a little bit on the possibility that we don't see Tannehill in this game. So that is factoring into my projections. We probably see him, but it's not 100% we see him. So that is something that is knocking the Titans down a little bit in my projections.
That's good assessment there. It's a fair point. Next one on the slate, talking about not living up to expectations. How do you like this? Boy, what a perfect time for these two teams to square off. Indianapolis Colts 3-5-1 against the Las Vegas Raiders. 5.5-point favorites. 5.5-point favorites. The Las Vegas Raiders are in this game against the Colts. This is like when you have the two kids who are problematic and you lock them in a room in detention together and you just say, you figure it out. I don't know. But here we go. 42.5 is the over-under. The money line is plus 185 on the Colts if you like them to upset here. Fitz, break this down for me, because I think we're all trying to figure out who the Raiders are. The Raiders are trying to figure out who the Raiders are, and the Colts are just losing. I feel like between losing players, losing Jonathan Taylor, losing some other pieces here, the health of this team kind of not being what it was. And then it seems like from a coaching standpoint, things are sort of fraying at the seams at this stage. So where do you go here? Because both of these dysfunctional teams right now, somebody's got to come out with a victory. Who is it?
Yeah, there's not going to be much of a breakdown, Joe. The two of the biggest Jekyll and Hyde teams in the NFL. I wouldn't bet this with your money. And
I wouldn't let you bet it with my money.
Yeah, I'm not touching this. I mean, I'm definitely not betting the Colts. The Colts are unbettable right now. But I don't feel good enough about the Raiders to bet them either. So I'm just walking away. Don't like the side, don't like the total.
So Pat's clear about his feelings about it. Friedman, do you think though that are we giving the Raiders too much here? 5.5? I mean, for a Raiders team that continuously lets everybody back into games. I know it's the Colts. But I mean, if you look at what the Raiders haven't done, which is close out, I mean, doesn't this lead you to a perfect situation where, nobody's looking for the Colts? You might as well take the Colts side of this game and take the Colts side points.
Yeah, I mean, I hate this game. It's disgusting. We're not going to talk about the Patriots because they're not playing this week, but the Patriots look like one of the worst teams in the NFL, I think, this past week. Except
Oh no, not good at all.
Except they were playing the Colts, which means
They play good defense, and Matthew
Yeah.
Judon gets to the quarterback. And at the end of the day, if you play defense and run the football, that again, what do I always say? That travels, right?
Yeah.
So you could do that, and you could be good to a certain amount, and then when you play those higher level teams, the Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allens of the world are going to pick you apart, unfortunately. But I mean, the Raiders have kind of told us who they are. I know the Colts have as well, but geez, week to week, we always see this where we just count some team out, and then the next week we go, oh, look at that. Look, they showed a little signs of life there. Is this one of those scenarios where maybe you're overlooking it?
Yeah, I mean, I have this projected at 7, which is disgusting. It really is disgusting. And I'll just say, in the look-ahead market, when it was 3.5, I had value on the Raiders, but I didn't bet it because my lizard brain was thinking, oh, maybe this gets down to 3. Maybe then, maybe somehow it works out. It gets down to 3, and then now the number's at 5.5. But I'm still showing value on that. But man, I really don't want to bet it. But the Colts, they are bad. Like the Sam Ehlinger experiment is not working out. They entered this past week dead last in the Massey Peabody ratings, which I have a lot of respect for that. They were higher in my ratings. I needed to knock them down. I've knocked them down significantly based on what we saw last week. They did look like one of the worst teams in the NFL last week, and I think I need to power rate them as such. So I am showing some value here, but man, I don't want to be betting the Raiders. But if I have it projected at 7 and the number's 5.5, I should probably be betting it.
All right, let's move on to the next one here. The key word is yet there, everyone. Green Bay Packers 3-6. They are 5-point home underdogs. The Dallas Cowboys -5 here in this one as they come in off the bye. 42.5 is the number in this one. Plus 180 for the Packers on the money line. Rashawn Gary looks like he has a torn ACL, so he is going to be out. Devondre Campbell was out last week. So Packers missing pieces there, not to mention still waiting on clarity with Aaron Jones. Freedman, I'm going to give Pat some time on this one because I know he's got lots of feelings about it. So, look, home underdogs, here we go again. But at the same time, the Packers, once again, continue to show us who they are every single week. And I tried to warn everybody last week on this show who they were, and nobody wanted to listen to me. So do you think people are listening now?
I hope so. And,
Pat couldn't wait. Pat's jumping right in. Go ahead, Pat, go.
Yeah. And, and by the way, this is Fitz's favorite team against Freedman's favorite team.
That's right.
But you're not going to get any braggadocio from me. Although I will say that Des Bryant didn't really catch the ball. Never mind. So yeah, I had this as pretty much right where the line is at 4.5. But that was before you informed me, Joe, just before the show that Rashawn Gary has torn his ACL. So the Packers' best defender, the one guy who, as terribly as this team has played, who showed up every week, he's not there. Aaron Jones hurt himself. He's probably not going to play. Their only explosive weapon on offense anymore. So that's definitely going to shift the projection here. I think I'm going to bet Dallas.
All right, here we go. Mr. Cowboy, you talk to me about the Cowboys here. What you think? Do you think that this is more competitive than we realize, or do you think this is just another nail in the coffin of the Packers of a very long season for them?
Well, I want to contextualize a little bit what we saw yesterday with the Packers. Yeah, they played horribly, and some of the throws that Rodgers made were kind of inexcusable. But they suffered just an avalanche of injuries in yesterday's game. Romeo Doubs exiting with the ankle injury, Christian Watson exiting with a concussion. The only thing worse than having to depend on 2 rookie wide receivers is depending on them and then having them taken away from you in the middle of the game. Cornerback Eric Stokes left early with a knee and ankle injury. Obviously, Rashawn Gary out for the year, and then Aaron Jones. So, what we saw wasn't, I would say, the typical Green Bay offense, but it was still fairly typical. There were extenuating circumstances, and we don't know how many of those guys are going to be back for this game. And so I will say, I have this projected at 4.75. So kind of right in between the 4.5 where it opened last night and the 5 widely available in the market. And I got to say, that 4.5 is still available at one place right here. I am seeing it at BetMGM, and just kind of like from a tactical betting perspective, I do expect this line to continue to move. So I'm just going to grab it now at the 4.5 here, the lone 4.5 left in the market at BetMGM.
Yeah, and the Gary news I got from Aaron Nagler this morning, old colleague of mine, who says it's probably going to be announced at some point, but that seems to be the case there with him. So just sometimes when it rains, it pours on some teams. Just the way it's going right now for the Pack, unfortunately for them. The Los Angeles Rams, 3-5. They are 3.5-point favorites in the game against the Arizona Cardinals, who dropped another one. The Arizona Cardinals and the Rams is at 43.5 plus 152 on the Cardinals side here. Look, the Cardinals seem to be, I don't know, Freedman, when you watch the Arizona Cardinals, you're watching what happens on the field, but you're almost watching more for what happens off the field and the constant arguing and bickering and the nonsense going back and forth. It just seems like Cliff Kingsbury does not have control of what's going on there, or it seems like Kyler Murray is revolting against it. It's hard to know which side is right or what's happening, but that just seems like a bad recipe to go and travel to the Rams, who just coming off a tough loss there to the Bucs. So I'm definitely on the Rams side of this one, and I am not a fan of the Rams. You know that. Are you in the same mind here? Do you think that Arizona can keep this more competitive, or do you think the Los Angeles Rams here kind of get right and get back on track?
No, I tend to have a very simple formula when it comes to Arizona. I bet them as road underdogs and I fade them as home favorites. And so they are, very cleanly road underdogs in this spot. It's, moving around between 3.5 in the market. I have this projected at 3. And so I will be, grabbing it at 3.5, BetMGM 3.5 there, at, minus 110 odds. So I think there's value there on anything above the key number of 3.
Fitz, do you feel the same way in this game?
Not really. I mean, having done shows with Freedman for 10 weeks, I know all about the Kingsbury code, and I'm kind of, he's been spot on with it. I'm reluctant to go against it, but in the earlier meeting between these two teams in week 3, it was a strange game. The Rams kept the Cardinals at arm's length and won 20-12, and the Rams got out to this 13-0 lead by early in the second quarter. And they just kept holding the Cardinals to field goals. That's all Arizona could generate, 4 Matt Prater field goals. And the Cardinals outgained the Rams 295 yards to 239 yards in that game. It was kind of a rock fight. Cardinals didn't commit a single turnover. They held Kyler to 37 of 58 for 314 yards. So they just turned the Cardinals into this inefficient offense. That's why I kind of like the under. I think we see maybe the same type of game in that here. And although we had the Kingsbury code, I just can't follow it. I don't think I'm going to take either side.
Well, here's one you could do in game if you like. Cliff Kingsbury is now 6-27-1 when trailing at halftime. So if you want to just wait and see what the score is at half, and then you can kind of make your wagers accordingly to that too, even if it's close, even if it's 10-7, for goodness sake. All right, let's go to the next one here. We've got the Los Angeles Chargers and the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers coming off their bye. This one is in primetime on Sunday night. They are 7-point favorites against Los Angeles, who is missing Mike Williams, Keenan Allen this past week. Certainly missing a lot of pieces. 46.5 is the number here. If you like the Chargers on the upsets, plus 220. Last time we saw Christian McCaffrey, he was literally doing everything he could to get the 49ers the victory there. So a week off, a little bit of rest, a little bit more time in the offense. Do you think this 7 is a good number here, Pat? Your thoughts on Chargers and 49ers?
I kind of think the number is pretty spot on, but I want to be on the over here, Joe. I don't see how the Chargers can possibly stop the 49ers running game. The Chargers are so bad against the run.
Right.
And I think the 49ers are going to put up 30 plus points. And I think the Chargers have a good enough offense to do the rest to push this game over. I'm
46.5 does kind of seem, I was going to say 46.5 does kind of seem like it's begging for the over there. Freeman, do you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, I have this projected at 48.6, so I do see value on that. And honestly, that is probably the better way to play it. The way that my instinct is to look at the side and say, oh, I'm on the Chargers in this spot. And I think 7 is too much. It opened at 6.5 in the early line. It's moved to 7 at some places. The look ahead was 5. in the in the offseason, this number was between 0.5 and 1. So it has, moved aggressively towards the 49ers over the, the course of the season. And man, the 49ers at home, that is like 49ers is a home favorite. That is just a situation
Right.
I want to fade when given the opportunity. But at the same time, I normally don't want to do that with the Chargers because I don't trust them. But to Fitz's point, I do think both of these teams can put up points. So that is probably the way to play it.
Yeah, the over on the 46.5 seems like the safest early wager before we get any other news. All right, last one here. Monday Night Football. The Eagles undefeated at 8-0. 10.5 is the number on this one. The Washington Commanders at 4-5. They've been plucky, as Fitz likes to say. 44.5 is the number, plus 375 on the money line. Now, Freedman, sometimes these in-division games get a little wacky, and last time we saw a big number here attached to the Eagles, they did not cover it. So, I know it's different class of team here. The Eagles have been very good. The defense has played great. Hurts and the offense have been terrific. Everything's working for the Eagles now. I'm not saying it's a trap game, but we all know these in-division games sometimes get a little wacky. Does it get wacky enough of that 10.5 for you to be interested on the Commanders, or you think, no, stay away, or it's the Eagles?
I still like the Eagles in the spot, and 10.5 is a big number. I mentioned earlier this week I'm showing value on some of the big favorites, and this is just one of those spots. The Eagles, man, they're coming off of that mini bye. I think they're still a really good team that is getting better. And they underperformed a little bit against the Texans, but at no point did it really feel like they were going to lose that game. And I do not have a lot of respect for Washington here. Take this trend for whatever it's worth, but Nick Sirianni is 6-0-1 against the spread as a home favorite. Like most teams as home favorites, if anything, they tend to underperform, but like the Eagles haven't in that spot. So I still like them here. I have this projected at 11.25.
There was a commercial on the weekend. They were running on the internet for Taylor Heineke and the Washington Commanders season tickets for next year. So make what you will out of that, Fitz. I don't know. Do you think they're thinking Taylor Heineke can go ahead and pull off a huge upset against the Eagles, or at least cover this 7?
Oh, man.
This 10.5. Apologies, 10.5.
I hope they're not thinking that. And I tend to think this line is going to increase. Like, I don't see a ton of value at 10.5, but I think I see enough value to bet it now before it goes up.
Yes.
And in the earlier meeting between these two teams in week 3, 24-8 Eagles win in Washington. Eagles didn't really run the ball well, but Jalen Hurts was 22 of 35 for 340 yards with 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. So he pretty much picked Washington apart. And Hurts has looked really good lately. So there's no way I can go against the Eagles here. And, I think get them now. I see this line ending up at like 11.5 or 12. So jump on it now before the
I want it to keep growing, and then I want to go to the Washington side. That's what I want to let this one. I want to water it. I want to give it some sunlight, and then I want it to grow, and then I want to go back the Commander side of this one. That's what I want to do, because I think that's where you're going to find the value. Because funny things happen on these primetime games, especially in division. These teams show up for these kind of moments. There, it's the emotional side of football that all the data sometimes you just can't quantify it, but it happens. We saw with the Texans on Thursday night. So we know it happens. These primetime games, these guys get up, they know everybody else is watching them. So they show up for these games. So let this number grow, marinate. That's what you want to do, like a good Italian Sunday sauce. Just going to let it sit there for hours and hours and hours. And then you enjoy it. I enjoyed this show. Hopefully you all did too. And if you need more help, you can always go to bettingpros.com. Don't forget to check out that over-under game on Sleeper at sleeper.app/bettingpros. Use that promo code bettingpros and get that $100 deposit match and go win some money. Play a little over-under, have some fun. And don't forget to always check out BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. Download the BetMGM app now and go ahead and start placing your wagers. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Pat and Matt, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.